Our meeting tonight is now open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through the study and practice of Christian Science. Karen from California, go ahead, please.
Good evening, and thank you, Craig, for those readings. I am so grateful this evening for our beautiful lesson sermons and all those who are responsible for them. This takes much prayer and dedication on the part of many people, and I am deeply grateful to you all. They are so powerful, and I look forward to each week's lesson sermon. I am also grateful for the roundtables, where I have been learning so much about how to pray scientifically and therefore more effectively about world affairs, myself, and my family. I am so grateful for the loving support of my practitioner, who has taught me so much about how to live this science of the Christ and how that differs from what I thought it meant to be a Christian Scientist. I am learning that it means making the laws of God practical in my day-to-day activities. I catch myself so much quicker now when my thought goes off course, and I start thinking from a personal sense standpoint rather than as God's reflection. I was so anxious about many things and did not realize that that came from a belief that I was separate from God. Now I know that when I start to feel anxious, I am believing I am responsible for something or someone, including myself. God never put me in charge of anything or anyone. Rather, to be obedient to God is to acknowledge that He only is present and governing all harmoniously. And to submit to His will, I feel the peace I long for. As soon as I acknowledge what our Master, Christ Jesus, tells us, quote, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father that dwelleth in me, He doeth the works. And my Father hath not left me alone, end quote. The fear and anxiety goes away. I am grateful to God for bringing me to Plainfield Church Independence, where I truly changed from a self-centered life to one of purpose to further the cause of Christian Science in the world. I am grateful for all the blessings that I and my family have received. I am grateful to Christ Jesus, who is constantly teaching us today through His words and works how to be a true Christian and walk by faith, not by sight. I am so grateful to our leader, Mary Baker Eddy, the promised revelator to this age of the impersonal Savior, Christian Science. I am very grateful to be a member of this church and to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Candy from Wisconsin, go ahead, please.
Hello, everyone. Last week, when I went to read my lesson, my tablet, from which I read the full text version, decided it had numerous updates to accomplish. One of them was the app I used to read the lesson. The thought came to me to use my phone, but then a thought came and said, nah, read it later, because reading on a phone is sometimes too wonky. But I decided this was my time that I always read it, and I would try the phone. I opened the lesson page from the website, and wow, here was a perfectly formatted page, easy to use, read, navigate. I loved it. No pinching, expanding, changing font size, or any of the other tricks that we use to read web pages. What a gift this is. Thank you, Jeremy, and all who perfected this page. Good night, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Mara from Mississippi, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be a part of this Wednesday meeting tonight. Thank you for the readings, Craig. I'm so thankful that I have found the Plainfield Christian Science Church. My life has changed so much for the better. I'm so grateful for all that I'm learning. I'm working on my relationship with God and loving others. Yesterday, I woke up not feeling well. My stomach hurt. I was really tired, but worst of all, I had a pounding headache. I knew I had so many things planned to do, and at first I really didn't think I'd be able to accomplish everything, considering how poorly I was feeling. A few years ago, I would have popped a few Advil to make my headache go away, but now I know better. I know that by me taking Advil, I would be allowing myself into the mortal dream, believing that I am physical and not spiritual, or that I am sick and medicine can help me, instead of knowing who I really am. I remembered back to this past week's roundtable discussion and the statement that Gary said, God owns us. What a simple yet so comforting statement that is. And if God owns me, then I am only good, nothing bad, only spiritual, not material, no headache or pain, only perfect like God made me. Knowing this very simple statement really helped me. I also knew that most everything I had to do that day was to bless people. I reminded myself to put God first. I continued praying, and as I began my task for the day, I thought about another comment by my practitioner at another recent roundtable discussion. She explained that you can't feel sick and sad if you're feeling happy and thankful. I decided I wanted to feel thankful and happy. I quickly felt better and actually accomplished more things than I originally planned to do that day. I'm so grateful for the weekly Sunday morning roundtable discussions and the Wednesday testimony meetings. These practical applications of Christian Science, along with my practitioner's support, have helped me so much this past year. Thank you to everyone for making this meeting possible.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead, please.
Good evening. I had an experience on Saturday that proved to me, in a small way, God's care and protection when we keep Him foremost in our consciousness. I had spent the morning working to get my thought right about something and establish God's control and omnipotence. It was a beautiful day, and early in the afternoon, the thought came to me that it would be really nice to take a bike ride. And I decided to go to a path, a greenway, that winds through woods and countryside. It's about 9 miles one way, and my plan was to go to the end and then come back the same way. And during the ride, I was silently declaring truths and also just expressing gratitude at the beauty around me, the blue sky and the birds, the bogs and the trees with the colorful leaves. During the last few miles of the trail, I thought, well, maybe I should just turn around and head back and not go all the way to the end. But the thought came strongly several times to just keep going, so I did. And when I got to the end of the trail, where there's a parking lot and restrooms, I heard this loud explosion. I didn't realize what it was until I got off my bike and saw the rear tire had burst and was completely flat. It was an old tire, and it was on its last legs. But I actually rejoiced then and there. I just laughed, and I thanked God for such perfect timing, because had I decided several miles back to turn around, I might have been stuck in the woods with a bike that would have been hard to haul. But instead, I was in a location where I could call my husband and have him pick me up, which I did. And I just felt very blessed, and just wanted to express my gratitude for God's love for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to the Plainfield Christian Science Church for all it provides in the true teaching of Christian Science. I'm grateful to God who has been with me throughout my life's journey, and especially now with the dramatic changes happening in my life. I know how important God's timing really is. My practitioner has been an enormous blessing through her steadfast support and love. And for this, I am forever grateful. Thank you so much. And I'm grateful for the readings tonight. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Tony or Lenny from North Carolina, go ahead, please.
Thank you for your readings tonight, Craig. If we have the wrong idea of God, then we really have a wrong idea about ourselves. I was just reading in the Science of Being there and Science and Health that human philosophy has made God man-like, and Christian Science makes man God-like. And that's such a radical concept for us. I really wanted to express my gratitude for some help that I've been getting from a practitioner here at the church. She's really been making it very clear that I am not to react when I am faced with a challenge, particularly if I have a recurring challenge. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a wonderful watch that was put up from Gilbert Carpenter talking about how it's so important to watch your attitude when you're thrown into a hot or a cold, very like a jarring situation that demands a lot of you. And that, a peaceful, harmonious experience is really the enemy of spiritual growth because you think everything is okay. And I had an experience where I was definitely in a jarring experience where I had some very, very aggressive symptoms of the flu for 2 days solid, and it required a lot of work on my part. And I'm very grateful for how quickly the aggressive symptoms just stopped, and I'm grateful for the practitioner support of just helping me learn how to do all I can do and stand. And this church has been wonderful at expanding those principles. That's how science is how we should be operating in science and impersonalizing everything. I'm very, very grateful for that experience. As jarring as it was, I can look back on it now and see some growth, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And grateful to be here tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you. Gary.
Well, tonight I'm very grateful to be learning how to recognize how well God is taking care of us every day, taking care of all of us, really. Nothing happens by chance or by coincidence. And learning to be grateful to Him for the good that He brings into my life. I have things every day where good happens, and I'm grateful to God, and it seems to make everything go right, if you know what I mean. I had an example that of this, however, that happened a while ago, but it was so vivid. I've just never forgotten it, and I'd like to just tell about it. I work in a town here in New Jersey, about 30 minutes away, where it's very difficult to find good parking a lot of the time. There's a lot of businesses in the town, and there's a major train station in the town. So there's a huge demand for parking in the town, and there often is not enough. So I try to park in a parking garage that's near where I work, and it's close to everything in the town, and it usually fills up by 9 o'clock. So if I want a parking spot, I have to get there on time. And so one day I was getting ready to go to work, and remembered that there was a something that needed to be done, work for the church that I hadn't done yet, and seemed like it needed to get done. And my first thought was, well, I'd better do it later, because if I don't leave for work now, I won't be able to find a parking spot. And after I thought that, I felt really terrible. And so I knew that God was instructing me to get it done now and not put it off. So after wrestling with myself for a few seconds, it was clear God wanted me to get this thing done. So I said, okay, God, I will do this, and I will trust you to take care of me. So I took care of what needed to be done and left for work. And when I got to the town I work in, I was clearly too late to find a good parking spot in the garage that I park in. But God said, try it. Just check it out before you look for something else. So I thought, okay, I'll trust God to take care of me here. And I drove into the parking garage, and right near the entrance to the parking garage, there was an empty spot. And it was the only empty spot in the whole garage. And I laughed. I was so happy. I almost cried because I was so happy that obviously somebody had just left an open spot just at the time that I arrived. And I thought, God, thank you. And I just kept saying thank you, because it was so clearly God taking care of me. Well, things like this happen often, and I'm so grateful to recognize that it's not coincidence, it's not luck. There is a law that you take care of God's work, and He takes care of us. And this is the covenant that God made with the early Israelites and for all of His people, and that includes us. And I was so grateful to recognize what it was. And it was a good lesson, and it happens, more frequently than it used to. And I'm so grateful for that. So anyway, I'm so grateful to be learning these lessons in Christian Science as to what our relationship with God really is and how well He does take care of us when we recognize it. So grateful to be with you all here tonight.
Thank you. Day from Georgia. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm grateful for all that I'm learning in Christian Science through this church. That's helping me as I continue to grow in my understanding of God's power and His protection. One thing I'm learning is the importance of being patient in prayer. I'm finding that when I'm faced with so-called problems or challenges, I'm not in such a rush to respond or react if I don't feel moved by God to do so. Even when an immediate response seems to be needed, I'm learning to immediately call on God to ask what He would have me do, or to know if I need to do anything at all. Waiting for an answer isn't always easy, but it's training me to truly wait on God and to no longer lean on my own understanding. With this, I'm seeing that God truly knows best and takes care of me and everyone. This is slowly but surely relieving me of a lifetime sense of false responsibility, and I'm so grateful to be learning of what good can come when I truly let go and let God. Thank you so much for tonight's readings and for all of the testimonies given so far. I'm very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Christina from Mexico. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. I'm very grateful for the healings I have had through the study of Christian Science. For many years, since my childhood, I suffered from throat problems that were always accompanied by discomfort and fever. Many times a year I had tonsillitis, and so my life went on until my adulthood. It seemed that I was condemned to use antibiotics all my life. I tried many means to cure myself, including natural medicine, homeopathy, and acupuncture, but they were ineffective. Finally, God led me to Christian Science. At that time, I asked to a practitioner in Mexico to help me with prayer. In the treatment, hatred, resentment, and anger came to light. Thanks to the healing work of the Christ, I could realize that this was the root of the problem. It took some time to be completely free of this scourge. Mortal mind is reluctant to correct itself, as Mrs. says in her book, Science and Health. It seemed that I was strongly linked, so to speak, to hate and negative feelings. I had to correct my thinking. The divine truth is always victorious, and finally, new winds of understanding, mercy for myself, and freedom down in my consciousness. The healing came, and I stopped having problems with my throat. In the past, some doctors told me that I needed a tonsil operation because I was in risk to have heart problems in the future. Thank God I never had the operation, and certainly I don't have any trouble with my heart. Why? Because they were lies of mortal mind, no God's truth. Apart from the physical release, being free from sin of resentment was the best of all, and for which I am most grateful to God and the Christ. I could see the unreality of that whole mental picture of animal magnetism. Now at Plainfield, listening to the round tables that there are no victims, no villains, I can have a better perspective of this healing. I'm so grateful to know Christian Science and to confirm that our prayers are always answered. In science, we are scientifically liberated from evil beliefs. I am also grateful for all the work is done at Plainfield Church and for the practitioner who is helping me now. It is great to be a member of this church and to participate in the Unity Watches. What a holy mission. Thank you for this beautiful service. Much love to all of you, and God bless you. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. Benjamin.
I'm so grateful to be here tonight. Listening to Christina's testimony reminded me a lot about myself as well. I remember a couple of weeks ago when I was driving, I came across a sign they put on the street, and it has a word written on it. And it seems like there were the sign was talking about fundraising for that particular word, but I don't really know what that word means. I think that was one of the few times I've came across that word. So when I get to the place where I was going, I had to Google that word to know exactly what it means. I don't know why I was so interested in that word, but I later found out why. So I Googled what it means, and I found out what it actually means was exactly what I used to be. No wonder I saw it and became interested on it to know what God have done for me, in case I forgot. And the word actually means what I used to be growing up as a little kid. To be exact, when I was growing up as a little kid, I would say that I have this delicate thing that goes on with me. Like, for example, if I go out to play football with my friends, every little thing I will bleed, mostly from my nose. And it happened constantly during that time. And sometimes when I sleep at night, I wake up in the morning, my pillow will soak with blood. I mean, a lot of blood. And my parents, my mom in particular, was so worried about it. And she took me to several places where we were referred to some medical places, doctors, and they couldn't figure out what it was or how to treat the problem. But as a little child, I wasn't worried about it. Sometimes I thought it was fun. But my parents didn't see it that way. They were worried. But the condition continues as I was growing up until I became a teenager, even to my adulthood. But not as frequently as it was when I was growing up, but it continued to my adulthood. And just like I was when I was little, I didn't react to it. I didn't take it too serious. Whenever it happened, I just let it happen. And I would clean her up and do whatever necessary I needed to do. And I would go about my business. But it was there. The claim was there. And when I first came to this church, I would say when I discovered Christian Science, I started learning about God. Like Tony said earlier, how can say, I don't remember exactly how Tony put it, but I kind of took it to heart. How you think about yourself is how you think about God. Or the other way around, how you think about God is how you think about yourself. That was one of the few lessons I learned when I first came here. I started thinking highly about myself, and that also includes my health. Every medical claims that have believed in or that have been said about me, start to learn to not take them serious or not think about them at all, but focus on about how God sees me, how I see myself. I started to do that, and I still do that these days. And somehow I forgot about that condition that I grew up with. I remember I gave a testimony a while ago when I actually remember it, that I used to suffer from that problem, and that was after many years of never experiencing anything like that. And at this moment, I haven't experienced it. It's been more than 20 years. I've never had any drop of blood come out of my nose. I would say from the day I discovered Christian Science was the day the condition stopped. And I'm so grateful. I mean, I can't talk about this all day, but all night. But I'm so glad that God showed me that word that day, because if it wasn't that word that I saw when I was driving along the highway on Route 18, I wouldn't even remember about that problem at all. I mean, it just God showed me that word so that I can remember what had been done for me, so that I don't forget. Even though it's been more than 20 years, I had to remember this, that it was God who did it, because growing up as a little kid, nobody could have done it. Medical people, they couldn't help me. They couldn't help my parents about it. But when the moment came, God took over my life, and all conditions of, all that kind of conditions, all claims disappeared. I'm so grateful that I found Christian Science. I'm so grateful for all the healings that I have experienced since I came to this church, and also since I discovered Christian Science. I'm so grateful that God brought me here and everything that God has done in my life. Thank you, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
We got an email testimony submitted. It says, "Hello everyone, my name is Diana. I'm from the Caribbean, Trinidad to be exact. I just wanted to share with you all a healing I had recently. I was cooking and burned my index finger in hot oil. I guess you can say the whole finger was submerged in the oil. And for a brief moment, I felt a shocking pain throughout my hand. I quickly applied what I have learned from Christian Science in Plainfield. My family was surprised there wasn't a water bladder, which I assume is a blister, or any type of bruising surrounding my finger the next day. But I knew the truth. Matter could not impress me. Thank you to Mrs. Eddy and all of the workers at Plainfield that make everything so accessible and easy to understand. I enjoy your roundtable discussions. This is my first ever giving a testimony. I am so grateful for everything that God has done and is doing for me. Thank you." And now we have a testimony from Imogen in Australia.
Good evening. Tonight I would like to thank my Plainfield practitioner for her instruction and holy prayers and all the great good that has come into our lives since I first became a member at Plainfield Independent. I am very grateful for the corrections and for the proper teaching of Christian Science, and I can't help but say I did not have a grasp at all on the protective work in Christian Science, and we had not been taught of the watchers for the world until coming to Plainfield Independent. I am very honoured to be a watch worker at this church, to help others who are striving for God wherever they may be in the whole wide world, to help those dear souls who are reaching out to God, the heavenly homesick, as Mrs. Eddy phrases it. Truly, being taught here in how to work effectively in Christian Science has brought many blessings into our lives, but the biggest blessing of all is staying in the love of God, as my dear practitioner says. No doubt, humanly, there have been many dreadful things that have happened in our country over the last few years, but we have met them all through Christian Science. I wanted to share tonight but one of the sublime passages that saved me through one of the darkest periods in my life. I was struggling very much with a reason to live when I read this passage written by Mary Baker Eddy, quote, "Human affection is not poured forth vainly, even though it meet no return. Love enriches the nature, enlarging, purifying, and elevating it. The wintry blasts of earth may uproot the flowers of affection and scatter them to the winds. But this severance of fleshly ties serves to unite thought more closely to God. For love supports the struggling heart until it ceases to sigh over the world and begins to unfold its wings for heaven." End quote. So to any who would like to know and experience our beautiful, kind, loving Father, Mother, God, all the answers are found in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Truly, the beauty, might, the purity, perfection, and completeness of Christian Science is taught at this wonderful independent church. Thank you to our practitioners and teachers. Thank you to our members and workers. Thank you to our singers and musicians. It is so beautiful to be a member of this church, and I am very grateful and so honored to be with you all. Thank you all so much, and so much love to you all.
Mary.
Good evening, everyone. I have a short note from someone in Illinois. First, happy Thanksgiving to the dear Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. So grateful to have found you on YouTube. I love the outcome of a 24-hour reading room, keeping my head down and sawing wood, realizing one, truth, life, and love, principle, soul, mind, and still trying to love more. Thankful for rebukes, practicing and stilling personal sense, and I'm not arguing so much anymore, and knowing right from wrong a lot better than I once did. So with much gratitude. And then this is a testimony from New Hampshire. I would like to express my gratitude for an experience that I had a couple of weeks ago. I had a vacancy about to occur in my building where a thrift shop had been. I was feeling like it was too bad that the thrift shop couldn't continue, as it was a vital part of the community where the building is. I was praying about it and knowing that whatever God's plan was, it was already in action and complete. In the meantime, I was taking the human footsteps that came to me to ensure that the space would not remain vacant. After placing an ad for the space and offering it to a few folks, it didn't look like it was going to remain a thrift store. At this time, I sort of reluctantly started to look into the steps that would be necessary to turn it into 2 apartments. One day, out of the blue, I went in there, which was not a usual thing for me to do, considering most of the inventory had been liquidated. I went to look for a bookshelf for another space that I was renovating. It was a very random for me to go in, but upon arrival, I met a man in there who asked me what was I doing with the space, to which I said I most likely was going to make a couple of apartments. A conversation struck up, and I mentioned that I was somewhat disappointed that the thrift store would not remain a thrift store. I commented on how it was such a thriving store a couple of shopkeepers ago, and what a wonderful business it could be for someone. At this point, the man asked me some questions about it and said that he might have an interest in it as a thrift store. In the few days that followed, he expressed a greater and greater interest, and within less than a week's time, the former proprietor was able to walk away from what was an unsuccessful business for him. It was not his cup of tea, and he was so thrilled to be able to walk away to a potential new position that was awaiting him. This was very clearly divine providence that brought me into the store on the same day as this enthusiastic man that was looking for this kind of work. As it turned out, this was his line, although he had never had a business of this kind. He also expressed to me that he and his wife had 6 children, all of whom would be thrilled to be part of the business. It is so gratifying to see this family working together in there, making it the beautiful and thriving business that it once was. I was able to do some things to make it an easy transition for them, and I could not be happier with the way the situation unfolded. Indeed, everything about it is so perfect that there is no doubt that it was God's hand that put it all together. I cannot begin to say how thankful I am for God and all that He is and does, for all that He is and does every moment, and a happy Thanksgiving to all. And then South Dakota. A friend was walking her dog and stopped to chat with me despite the brisk temperature of the early morning, and I took the time to thank her for an earlier act of kindness. She responded by giving me a hug which extended the blessing and amplified the feeling of goodwill between us. Can there be any mystery as to why the Psalms remind us of the requirements to love God and to sing His praise? I am grateful for this Plainfield Christian Science Church and the outpouring of love and devotion to God and to Mary Baker Eddy, the discoverer and founder of Christian Science as the Christ Science. Thank you all. And then California. The other day I was reading a magazine article speaking about a house which was just a place until the people in it experienced connections with each other. Then it became a home. This made me think of the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. For so many decades, I was searching for a church that was more than just a place, somewhere I could connect with a loving church membership, be allowed to contribute, and be part of a harmonious effort to further the cause of Christian Science. It was a journey through a desert until God led me to the green pastures and still waters of Plainfield. What a glorious gift bestowed. He gave me a wonderful church family where there is lots of love expressed and great joy in working together to do God's work. He leadeth me. By his own hand he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. Hymn 95. Thank you, Father, for leading me here. So I have one more, but I'll read that in the morning when we're all together again. And I'm so grateful for the readings tonight. They were beautiful, and so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that week after week we go into what I call overtime. We don't have to end at 9:15 early. We have so many testimonies. We could probably go on till 10. So thank God for this church. Thank God for a grateful congregation who is willing, yes, to praise God for all his great blessings. So grateful to be with you all tonight, and I look forward to seeing you in the morning. And bye for now.
Thank you.